My name is Sarah. I am 38 years old, and the woman I was just 2 years ago feels like a ghost from a distant memory. She was happy, perhaps even blissfully naive, living a life that seemed plucked from a romantic comedy, albeit one with slightly more laundry. James and I, we were the couple everyone pointed to at parties, the ones who still danced in the kitchen on a Tuesday night, who exchanged knowing glances across a crowded room. We'd met in college, two ambitious souls with a shared vision for a future filled with passion, purpose, and a sprawling family home. And for a decade and a half we'd built exactly that. Our home, a sun-drenched colonial in the affluent suburbs of Greenwich, Connecticut, wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was a living monument to our shared dreams. The scent of freshly baked cookies often mingled with the faint aroma of James's expensive aftershave and the sweet, indelible smell of our children. Emily, with her bright, inquisitive eyes and wild curls, was 10, already showing a flair for art that mirrored my own love for creative expression. Thomas, 7, was the quieter observer, a budding scientist who meticulously organized his Lego creations and devoured books on space. They were our world, the vibrant heart of everything we did. Our professional life was equally intertwined. We'd started Synergy Marketing Solutions from my tiny apartment kitchen, fueled by instant coffee and audacious dreams. James, with his sharp business acumen and effortless charm, handled client acquisition and strategy. I, the creative force, sculpted campaigns, designed visuals, and brought our clients' visions to life. We were a formidable team, growing the business into a respected, highly profitable enterprise. The success wasn't just financial. It was a testament to our partnership, our ability to build something significant together. The cracks, when they appeared, were insidious, almost imperceptible at first. Longer hours at the office for James, justified by big projects. A new, expensive cologne that wasn't his usual. Then the almost imperceptible flinch when I'd reach for his phone, a quick slide of his thumb to clear notifications. My gut, a loyal sentinel, began to whisper warnings. I tried to dismiss them, to attribute my unease to stress, to the inevitable ebb and flow of a long-term marriage. But the whispers grew louder, morphing into a roar the night I found the texts. They were undeniable, explicit, a digital ledger of his betrayal with a woman named Chloe, a junior account manager at a rival firm. My hands trembled so violently I almost dropped the phone, the screen burning a hole through my soul. The confrontation was explosive, a raw, primal scream of anguish and disbelief. James, usually so composed, crumbled under the weight of my fury, offering hollow apologies and desperate pleas for forgiveness. But the tapestry of our life together, woven with trust and shared history, had been irrevocably torn. There was no mending it. The infidelity wasn't just a physical act. It was a complete demolition of everything I thought we were. The divorce, then, became less a choice and more an inevitability, a painful amputation of a gangrenous limb. The initial phase of the divorce was handled with a veneer of civility, mostly for the children's sake. Our lawyers facilitated the division of assets, a cold, calculated dissection of a life built with passion. The house, our sanctuary, became a battleground of appraisals and equity. The cars, once symbols of our freedom, were just line items on a balance sheet. Even Synergy Marketing Solutions, our professional brainchild, was split, a forced professional divorce that severed not just finances but also the very identity I'd cultivated as its co-founder. I watched as the business I had poured my heart into, the one that defined so much of my professional self, was reduced to percentages and valuations, feeling a profound sense of loss, not just for the money but for the legacy. But none of that, not the loss of the material wealth, not the dismantling of our shared professional life, compared to the sickening visceral dread that began to consume me. The children, Emily and Thomas. How would we navigate this new, fractured reality with them? The thought of our family being split, of their innocent lives being caught in the crossfire of our broken vows, was a torment worse than any personal pain. James, ever the strategist, dropped the bombshell during one of our mediation sessions. His voice, devoid of emotion, cut through the sterile air of the lawyer's office like a surgical knife. "Sarah, I believe it would be in the children's best interest if they remained with me," he stated, his gaze unwavering. "My financial stability, the larger home, the established school district. It simply offers them more continuity and a superior environment." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about, James?" The words felt foreign on my tongue, inadequate to convey the tsunami of panic washing over me. "They're my children. I'm their mother." The notion of him taking them, of severing my lifeline to their innocent lives, felt like an unfathomable cruelty. He was weaponizing his wealth, weaponizing my vulnerability. The fact that a significant portion of my income was tied to the now divided business, and weaponizing the very chaos his infidelity had unleashed. He portrayed my newfound financial precariousness, a direct consequence of our split, as a pre-existing instability. It was a calculated, brutal move. I fought back tears, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing my pain, but inside, a silent, primal scream was building. It was the roar of a mother whose cubs were being threatened, a desperate cry against an injustice that transcended legalities. This wasn't just about money or property anymore. This was about my children, my purpose, my very identity. The fight for Emily and Thomas was no longer just about love. It was about my survival. I knew with chilling certainty that this would be the fight of my life. The courtroom was a study in sterile authority, a vast space of polished oak, hushed murmurs, and the rustle of legal papers. Every detail seemed designed to amplify the gravity of the proceedings, from the high ceilings that dwarfed us to the imposing bench where Judge Thompson presided. His face a stoic mask that betrayed no emotion. I sat beside Mrs. Albright, my lawyer, a woman whose kind eyes belied her sharp legal mind. She squeezed my arm occasionally, a small, reassuring gesture that barely registered through the thick fog of my anxiety. Across the aisle, James sat, a picture of composed confidence in a perfectly tailored suit. His lawyer, a formidable and notoriously expensive litigator named Mr. Thorne, whispering constantly in his ear. Mr. Thorne exuded an air of effortless superiority, his every movement a testament to his belief in his client's inevitable victory. The arguments unfolded like a meticulously choreographed play, each side presenting its version of reality. James's legal team painted a picture of me as financially unstable, emotionally volatile, and unprepared for the rigors of single parenthood. They presented meticulously prepared financial statements detailing James's substantial assets. His inherited trust fund, the thriving marketing business, now largely under his sole control, and the sprawling family estate with its manicured lawns and private amenities. They argued that his wealth ensured a stable, luxurious upbringing for Emily and Thomas, complete with access to the best schools, extracurricular activities, and a support staff, the very things they implied I could no longer provide. Mr. Harrison offers a clear, consistent, and undeniably superior environment for these children, Mr. Thorne boomed, his voice echoing in the quiet room. One that provides the stability and resources necessary for their optimal development. They even twisted the narrative of the infidelity, subtly implying that the emotional upheaval I'd experienced made me less capable of providing a calm home. It was a cruel caricature, a distorted reflection of the woman I was, the mother who had devoted 15 years to building a family and a home. They ignored my countless contributions to our shared wealth, the sleepless nights I'd spent building synergy marketing solutions alongside James, the emotional labor of raising our children. It felt like my entire identity was being dissected by strangers, reduced to bullet points on a legal brief, and I was utterly powerless to defend the nuances of my love, my sacrifices, my very essence as a mother. I wanted to scream, to stand up and tell the judge about every scraped knee I'd kissed better, every story I'd read, every school play I'd attended, every tear I'd wiped away. But Mrs. Albright had firmly advised me to remain calm, to let her speak, to trust the process. It was excruciating to sit in silence, my life hanging in the balance, while others defined my worth. Mrs. Albright, bless her heart, fought valiantly. She presented my strong character references, testimonials from friends and family who spoke of my nurturing nature and unwavering dedication to my children. She highlighted my co-founding role in the business, arguing that my recent financial precarity was a direct consequence of the divorce, not an inherent instability. She emphasized the emotional bond one shared with Emily and Thomas, trying to convey the irreplaceable value of a mother's presence. But in the cold, objective world of family court, emotional arguments often struggled to stand against hard financial facts. The legal system, designed to be impartial, often inadvertently favored the party with greater resources, enabling them to present a more compelling and expensive case. Then came the moment that shattered my world into a million irreparable pieces. Judge Thompson, a man whose face was etched with the weariness of countless similar cases, cleared his throat. The courtroom held its breath. After careful consideration of all presented evidence and weighing the arguments for the children's best interests, he began, his voice flat, devoid of a single inflection that might hint at the devastation he was about to unleash. The court finds that the father, Mr. James Harrison, is better equipped to provide a stable and consistent environment for the children, Emily and Thomas Harrison. My breath hitched, caught somewhere between my throat and my lungs. My vision blurred. Full custody is hereby granted to Mr. Harrison. The words echoed in the sudden cavernous silence of the courtroom, each syllable a hammer blow against my chest. Full custody. Not shared. Not visitation rights. Full. It was a death sentence for my soul. My heart plummeted, crashing through the floor of the courtroom, leaving an echoing void where my hope and purpose once resided. I heard Mrs. Albright say something, felt her hand gripping my arm, but her words were muffled, distant, as if spoken from a world I no longer inhabited. All I could see was James, a triumphant, almost pitying look on his face, as he nodded subtly to Mr. Thorne, a silent acknowledgement of their victory. He had won, and I had lost everything that truly mattered, everything that defined me. The drive home was a blur of unshed tears. The pain was too immense, too sharp to be contained by mere tears. It felt like a physical amputation, a vital part of my soul ripped away. My children. Emily's bright laugh, Thomas's quiet intensity. Their faces swam before my eyes, and a wave of nausea washed over me. How could a court, a system, reduce the profound, intricate bond between a mother and her children to a matter of finances and perceived stability? Had my love, my countless sacrifices, my very essence as a mother, meant so little? Had the years of nurturing, teaching, comforting, truly held no weight against a larger bank account? That night, sleep was a cruel joke. My house, once filled with the warmth of family, now felt like a mausoleum. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's questioning gaze, Thomas's small hand reaching for mine. I paced the empty rooms, the silence deafening, punctuated only by the frantic beat of my own heart, a drum of agony and despair. I tried to imagine my life without them. A hollow existence, devoid of purpose, a color drained from my world. The thought was unbearable. My mind raced, searching for an escape, a way to undo this nightmare. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I would not accept this. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a desperate, primal fight for my very identity, for the right to be a mother to my own children. A quiet, fierce resolve began to harden within me, pushing back against the overwhelming tide of despair. I had to get them back, no matter what it took. The unthinkable, whatever that might be, felt closer than ever before. The days that followed the court's decision were a blur of raw emotion, a period characterized by a profound physical ache in my chest that refused to subside. My house, once filled with the joyful chaos of children's laughter and the comforting sounds of their everyday lives, now echoed with a silence that screamed their absence. It was a tangible, suffocating quiet that pressed in on me from every corner, reminding me of the gaping hole in my life. I tried to fill it, desperately, with anything that might distract me from the gnawing emptiness, but nothing worked. Their toys lay untouched in their rooms, silent witnesses to a joy that felt stolen, their beds perfectly made, devoid of the warm indentations that spoke of their sleepy forms. Of course I tried to visit them. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird as I drove to James's sprawling estate, a place that now felt less like a family home and more like a gilded cage. It was the house he'd inherited from his wealthy parents, a testament to old money and generational privilege. And now it was where my children resided, so close, yet so agonizingly far. Each manicured shrub, each perfectly placed garden gnome on the immaculate lawn, felt like a silent taunt. He answered the heavy oak door himself, his face impassive, almost cold, as if greeting a telemarketer rather than the mother of his children. "Sarah," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any warmth or lingering affection, "you know the court's order. You don't have visitation rights yet. I'm afraid you can't see them." "But James, please," I pleaded, my voice cracking, betraying the desperate tremor in my soul. My hands clasped together, a futile gesture of supplication. "They're my children. Just for a few minutes. They must miss me." My eyes pleaded with his, searching for even a flicker of the man I once loved, the father who had once doted on them as much as I did. His jaw tightened, a muscle clenching just beneath his ear. His gaze remained unyielding, a solid wall between me and my deepest desire. "They're settling in," he stated, his voice a clipped, emotionless monotone. "It's best if we stick to what the court decided, for their stability. Any unscheduled contact will only confuse them." He didn't even flinch when I mentioned their longing, their obvious need for their mother. It was as if he'd become a different person entirely, a stranger cloaked in the familiar facade of my ex-husband, using the court's ruling as a shield, a weapon to further inflict pain. He closed the door, slowly, firmly, decisively, the heavy thud echoing the finality of his rejection. I was left standing on the pristine, manicured lawn, feeling utterly helpless, utterly alone, and completely adrift. The image of Emily's bedroom window, her curtains drawn tightly, a stark contrast to the way she usually left them open to let in the morning light, haunted me. Had he told them I didn't want to see them? Were they confused? Hurt? The thought tore at me, a constant, sharp pain. I spent sleepless nights replaying every agonizing moment of the trial, searching for a misstep, a word I should have said differently, a document I should have presented more forcefully. My mind was a relentless loop of what-ifs and if-onlys. The pain was a constant companion, a dull, throbbing ache that never truly subsided, only intensifying with each passing hour without them. I lost weight, my appetite vanishing, replaced by a gnawing anxiety that chewed at my insides. Friends called, expressing sympathy, their voices soft and understanding, but their words felt hollow, unable to bridge the chasm of my despair. How could they understand, truly understand, what it felt like to have your children, your very reason for being, ripped from your grasp by a piece of paper, by a judge's cold pronouncement? The despair was a heavy blanket, threatening to smother me entirely. There were moments when I felt the terrifying pull of giving up, of succumbing to the crushing weight of the injustice. But then, a flicker of their faces, a distant memory of their laughter, would spark a tiny ember of defiance within me. I was their mother. My love wasn't something that could be dismissed by a court order. Then a glimmer of hope, faint but undeniable, pierced through the darkness. My cousin Maria, a successful and highly respected family lawyer in New York City, called me, her voice cutting through my fog of grief with sharp clarity. "Sarah, this isn't right," she stated, her tone firm, leaving no room for argument. "I've been looking into your case, reading the transcripts. There are avenues we can explore. This isn't over. For a start, we should look into women's rights organizations. Many offer pro bono legal advice, or at least point us towards resources for mothers in your situation." Her voice, strong and determined, was a lifeline, a sturdy rope thrown to me in my sea of despair. It was the first time I'd felt a flicker of genuine hope since the verdict, a fragile seedling pushing through concrete. I acted on her advice immediately. I reached out to Mothers for Justice, a local grassroots organization I'd vaguely heard about, known for championing parental rights, particularly for mothers facing difficult custody battles. Their support group meetings were a revelation. Walking into that room, I was met by a circle of women who shared similar stories of loss, frustration, and the often biased legal system. Sitting among them, listening to their narratives, I felt a sense of camaraderie, a profound understanding I hadn't realized I was craving. They understood the nuances of the legal system, the inherent biases that could favor wealth and perceived stability over the intangible yet powerful force of maternal love. One woman, Eleanor, whose children had been returned to her after a brutal 2-year battle, became a beacon of strength and inspiration. Her eyes, though weary, held a deep understanding of my pain, but also a fierce, unyielding resolve. "It's a marathon, not a sprint, Sarah," she'd advised, her voice gentle yet firm. "But you have to fight. For them. For yourself. Don't ever give up." Eleanor introduced me to a pro bono lawyer connected to the organization, Mr. Davies, a man with a quiet demeanor but a formidable reputation for taking on challenging custody cases and winning. He listened patiently as I recounted my entire story, from the early days of James's infidelity to the crushing court verdict. His expression thoughtful, occasionally scribbling notes on a pad. "The initial ruling heavily favored his financial standing and his lawyer's portrayal of your situation," he concluded, his gaze direct and unwavering. "We need to build a compelling case that highlights your emotional and practical contributions as a mother, and unequivocally demonstrate your current capacity to provide a stable, loving home, even if it's not as grand as his. We'll also need to explore the children's current well-being and whether their current situation truly serves their best interests, beyond just material comfort." The path forward was daunting, a steep uphill climb, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a powerful resurgence of purpose. The idea of appealing the court's decision, once a distant, impossible dream, now seemed like a tangible, achievable goal. It wasn't just about winning. It was about proving to the court, to James, and most importantly, to myself and my children, that a mother's love and dedication were invaluable, beyond the reach of financial statements and legal rhetoric. As I embarked on the arduous journey of appeal, a new layer of pain, agonizing in its intimacy, unfolded before me. The silent, often unseen suffering of my children. It was a pain that pierced deeper than any legal setback, a quiet agony that spoke volumes about the irreparable damage inflicted by our fractured family. I heard snippets, whispered concerns from mutual friends who occasionally saw Emily and Thomas with James, and even more detailed accounts from the sympathetic nanny James had hired, a kind-hearted woman named Brenda who clearly cared deeply for the children. Her clandestine calls and brief, furtive messages became my fragile link to their world. Brenda's observations, relayed in hushed tones over hurried phone calls, were a dagger to my soul. Emily, my usually boisterous and expressive Emily, had grown noticeably quieter. She spent more time alone in her room, a stark contrast to her previous outgoing nature, her vibrant energy dulled by a profound sadness. Brenda mentioned finding elaborate drawings, no longer the cheerful landscapes and playful animals Emily once favored, but somber, abstract compositions in muted colors. To a mother's discerning eye, these were not mere childish scribbles. They were profound expressions of a deep, unspoken sorrow, hinting at a world that had lost its brightness. Emily, who used to chatter incessantly about her day, now offered monosyllabic answers, her eyes often distant, lost in thought. Thomas, always the more reserved and introverted of the two, had regressed in alarming ways. He had started wetting the bed again, a habit he'd long outgrown, a clear sign of emotional distress. Brenda often found him clinging to a worn teddy bear, Mr. Snuggles, a cherished gift from me years ago, his small frame often trembling slightly even in sleep. He would ask her, his voice a barely audible whisper, "When is Mummy coming home? Does Mummy not love us anymore?" These questions, innocent yet heartbreaking, echoed in my mind for days, tormenting me with the fear that James was actively poisoning their minds against me. He had even tried to enroll them in new, exclusive private schools further away, disrupting their established friendships and routines, claiming it was for better opportunities. But I suspected it was another calculated move to sever their ties to our old life and me. These accounts, filtered through intermediaries, were a constant, raw torment. My children, my precious Emily and Thomas, couldn't speak for themselves in court. Their voices were silenced by their age, their profound emotions perhaps dismissed as mere childish whims or temporary adjustments by a system that privileged adult testimony. But I knew better. I knew the intricate workings of their little hearts, the way their smiles could hide a flicker of confusion, the way a sudden stillness could betray a world of unspoken longing. I imagined them, alone in that grand, impersonal house, surrounded by luxury but yearning for the familiar comfort of my arms, for the genuine warmth of a mother's presence. I pictured Emily tracing patterns on her bedroom window pane, her small face pressed against the glass, wishing I would appear, and Thomas, tucked in his unfamiliar bed, tears silently wetting his pillow as he clutched Mr. Snuggles, whispering my name into the darkness. My legal team, now a formidable alliance led by the astute Mr. Davies, was meticulously building our appeal case. We were no longer just gathering financial records and character references. We were focusing intensely on the children's emotional well-being and the subtle, yet undeniable indications of their deteriorating emotional state. We interviewed their teachers, who confirmed Emily's decreased participation in class and Thomas's newfound quietness. We spoke with distant relatives and old family friends who had witnessed their distress. Mr. Davies even consulted with a child psychologist, Dr. Eleanor Vance, who provided expert testimony. Dr. Vance, after reviewing the reports and Brenda's detailed observations, clearly articulated that while James could provide material comforts, the children were exhibiting classic signs of attachment anxiety and emotional neglect due to the abrupt separation from their primary caregiver. "It's not about tearing James down," I constantly reiterated to Mr. Davies during our strategy meetings, my voice firm with conviction. "It's about highlighting the undeniable, irreplaceable bond between a mother and her children, a bond that transcends material wealth and legal technicalities. The children's emotional well-being is paramount. We need to show the court that their current living arrangement, despite its financial benefits, is actively detrimental to their psychological development and overall happiness." The emotional conflict wasn't just confined to Emily and Thomas. It resonated deeply within me, a constant internal battle that waged war with my resolve. There were moments of doubt, dark, lonely nights where I questioned if I was truly doing the right thing, if I was strong enough to endure this protracted, emotionally exhausting legal war. The thought of losing again, of the finality of it, of the judge's words echoing once more, sent shivers down my spine, threatening to break me. The fear of causing them more pain by prolonging the legal battle sometimes weighed heavily. But then I would remember Brenda's whispered accounts, the image of their innocent, longing eyes, the small, desperate signs of their sorrow, and my resolve would solidify once more, hardening like tempered steel. This wasn't just for me, it was for them. It was for their right to have a mother who fought for them with every fiber of her being. One afternoon, a small, unassuming package arrived at my door. It was from Emily, smuggled out by Brenda, who risked her job to deliver it. Inside was a crudely drawn picture, rendered in shaky crayon lines. It depicted our family. Me holding both their hands, a bright, oversized sun beaming down from a hopeful sky. Below it, in wobbly, hesitant letters, she'd written, "We miss you, Mummy. Please come home." A single hot tear escaped my eye, tracing a path down my cheek, but it wasn't a tear of despair. It was a tear of profound love and renewed determination. It was a simple drawing, yet it spoke volumes, a powerful, undeniable testament to their enduring love and their hidden pain. It was the confirmation I needed, the vital fuel for my unwavering determination. That small drawing was my promise, a silent vow that I would move heaven and earth to bring them back. James, meanwhile, remained unyielding, a stone wall of defiance. He refused to allow even supervised visits, citing the ongoing legal proceedings as a reason to maintain stability for the children. He claimed it would be disruptive to their routine, a thinly veiled excuse to maintain his control and deepen the wedge between us. His stonewalling only strengthened my resolve. It showed a chilling lack of empathy, a blatant disregard for his children's emotional needs, all hidden behind a veneer of legal correctness and perceived stability. He saw them as pawns in his victory, as extensions of his status, not as vulnerable little souls navigating a world turned upside down. I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I had to fight, not just for my right to be their mother, but for their fundamental right to have their mother back in their lives, fully and completely. The battle for my children spanned another grueling year, each day a test of my endurance, my faith, and my unwavering resolve. It was a period marked by intense emotional strain, the kind that digs into your very bones, but surprisingly, it was also a time of profound personal growth. With Mr. Davies leading the charge, and the unwavering emotional and strategic support of Mothers for Justice, we meticulously built our appeal case. Our strategy shifted from merely refuting James's claims to affirmatively demonstrating my capacity as a mother, and more importantly, highlighting the undeniable impact his custody had on Emily and Thomas. We presented compelling, heartbreaking evidence of Emily's continued withdrawal and Thomas's persistent regression. Dr. Vance, the child psychologist, provided powerful expert testimony, explaining in clear, empathetic terms how children thrive on consistent love, emotional security, and a primary attachment figure, none of which could be fully replaced by material comforts. She detailed how the abrupt separation from me, coupled with James's attempts to limit my contact, was manifesting in their anxiety and behavioral changes. We showed the court James's increasingly rigid control over their lives, the way he limited their interactions with friends, discouraged extracurricular activities they once loved, and isolated them from familiar environments, all under the guise of providing stability. It became clear that his definition of stability was more about control than genuine well-being. The turning point came when Mr. Davies, with quiet authority, argued that James's immense wealth, while substantial, was not translating into emotional well-being for the children. He presented research and expert testimony that strongly suggested children thrived on love, consistency, and a secure emotional attachment, not just the trappings of luxury. He painted a picture of Emily and Thomas as two little souls adrift in a gilded cage, longing for the warmth and unconditional love of their mother. I, on my part, had thrown myself into rebuilding my life with a fierce determination that surprised even me. While the legal battle raged, I secured a new, stable job in marketing, leveraging my experience from Synergy Marketing Solutions, proving once and for all my financial viability and independence. I moved into a smaller, but infinitely cozier home in a charming, family-friendly neighborhood. I meticulously decorated Emily's room in soft lavenders and Thomas's in his favorite space-themed blues, filling them with their favorite books and toys, creating a warm, inviting space brimming with the palpable promise of their return. It wasn't James's sprawling estate, but it was our home, filled with love and anticipation. I even started volunteering at a local community center, working with children's programs, further demonstrating my commitment to stability, my capacity for nurturing, and my ability to provide a consistent, loving environment. These actions weren't just for the court. They were for me, for my own healing, and to solidify the foundation upon which my children would return. The day of the final hearing, a crisp autumn morning, was etched into my memory with an almost painful clarity. The courtroom felt different this time, less intimidating, less like a cold, impersonal chamber of judgment, and more like a stage where the truth would finally, irrevocably be revealed. I felt a quiet strength radiating from within, a calm, unwavering resolve that had replaced the initial panic and despair that had gripped me for so long. James sat across from me, his usual composed demeanor visibly cracking under the weight of the new evidence and the relentless precision of Mr. Davies' arguments. His lawyer, Mr. Thorne, once so confident and imperious, seemed visibly less assured. His whispers to James now more hurried, less certain. When Judge Thompson finally delivered his verdict, his voice resonated with a new tone, one of thoughtful consideration, a hint of genuine understanding replacing his initial cold impartiality. While the court acknowledges Mr. Harrison's substantial financial resources, he began, his gaze sweeping slowly across the room, it has become abundantly clear that the children's emotional and psychological well-being has been significantly and detrimentally impacted by the abrupt and prolonged absence of their mother. The expert testimony presented regarding their emotional regression and attachment anxiety has been highly persuasive. He paused, and my heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum of hope and fear. The court also finds that Ms. Sarah Peterson has demonstrated remarkable initiative and fortitude in establishing a stable and nurturing environment. She has proven her renewed financial capacity and her unwavering dedication to providing for her children's needs, both financially and, more crucially, emotionally and psychologically. He paused again, his eyes meeting mine for a fleeting moment. Therefore, the previous custody order is hereby reversed. Joint legal and physical custody is granted to both parents, with primary physical custody awarded to Ms. Sarah Peterson, effective immediately. Mr. Harrison will have standard visitation rights, to be mediated by the court if necessary, to ensure a smooth transition for Emily and Thomas. Tears, hot, welcome and cleansing, streamed down my face. Joint custody. Primary physical custody. It wasn't full custody in the absolute sense, but it was a monumental victory, an affirmation of everything I had fought for. It meant Emily and Thomas would be living with me, truly living with me, in our own home, surrounded by our routines, their laughter filling our rooms once more. James looked stunned. Then a flash of raw anger contorted his features, but I barely registered it. All I could think of was my children, their faces, their voices, their presence. The reunion, when it finally happened, was everything I had dreamed of, and more. When I pulled up to James's house that afternoon, they were waiting on the porch, Emily's eyes wide with disbelief, Thomas clutching Mr. Snuggles tightly. As I stepped out of the car, Emily launched herself into my arms, tears streaming down her face, burying her head in my shoulder, her small body trembling with relief. "Mummy, you're really back. You came back," she sobbed, her voice muffled against my shirt. Thomas, usually so reserved, clung to my leg, his small hand gripping my dress, his face pressed into my side, his silent embrace speaking volumes. We drove to our new home, and their eyes lit up as they saw their rooms, their favorite colors on the walls, their toys neatly arranged, waiting for them. The familiar scent of comfort and belonging filled the air. There were still adjustments, of course. There was the lingering presence of James in our lives through shared custody, still moments of sadness for what we had lost as a complete family, still healing to do. But the laughter returned to our home, louder and more joyful than before, echoing through the halls. Emily started drawing vibrant pictures again, her creativity blossoming anew, and Thomas, bless his heart, stopped wetting the bed almost immediately. I watched them play, their innocent joy a balm to my weary soul, and knew that every sleepless night, every tear, every legal battle, every ounce of strength I had summoned had been worth it. I had done what seemed unthinkable. I had fought against a system that felt insurmountable, and I had brought my children home.